Devendorf.
You could have saved it till after.
Okay. Devo, how you doing today?
What's going on, guys? I have times when I am soft and emotional, yes.
Let's look back on this game last night first and foremost, and it's Georgia Tech. It's a quad 3 opportunity. It's a game Syracuse should win, but it's tough to win. On the road in conference play. They went out, they took care of that. What are your takeaways from the game last night?
I thought first half offensively and really defensively they played great. If you take that first half offensively, it'd probably be one of the best halves of the season. The ball was moving. They were getting out in transition. They were playing with pace. Guys were getting into the paint, kicking out, making good decisions. And then second half, and really, I don't know, maybe 8 minutes left in the game. The effort and everything they did in the first half just kind of, I guess, went to the wayside. And Georgia Tech, they just played harder. They really got out of what they did in the first half. If they play like they did in the first half offensively going forward, they're going to be tough to beat because defensively, pretty much the whole year they've been pretty consistent. We could, sure point out some games where the effort wasn't there, but defensively they've been pretty solid. And but yeah, that first half offensively, I thought it was great.
Eric, you mentioned something on Twitter, and it was kind of glaring to me, too, is it felt like the ball didn't get to Donnie enough in the second half for Syracuse last night.
Well, yeah, especially when, Ndago, the guy he was triggering the run for Georgia Tech, he had 4 fouls, and I would have went right back to Donnie, not on the perimeter, but in that, elbow mid-post area and just go ahead, rip through and attack. He was doing a great job of doing that all game, getting to the rim, and Ndago couldn't be as aggressive as he wanted to be with 4 fouls. So if they would have got to Donnie, and I would have just kept going to him, miss, make, whatever it is, each possession I would have tried to be aggressive at Ndago, and it just seems like they went away from it. And then I thought, honestly, Cayenne should have played more. I think that his first half was great. He had 11 points, and I don't know how many minutes he played. I think he played 18 minutes overall. And a majority of that was in the first half. But I think Cayenne is Syracuse's best pure scorer as far as, that's what he naturally can do really good, whether it be shoot the ball, get to his mid-range, or get all the way to the basket. And we've seen other games where in the first half he was one of the only guys really attacking, making plays, getting to the free throw line. And I'm not saying, you take JJ out. I think you could play him with JJ. I think you could sub him in for Nate Kings. I think he's better offensively than Nate Kings. Obviously, defensively, he may not be as good, but I don't think he's that bad defensively where you don't play him. And then even so, you got guys like William Kyle and Donnie Freeman back there waiting for guys. And so if they do, get drove by, it's still going to be a hard attempt at the rim with William Kyle there. But I think they went away from Freeman, and I thought Cayenne definitely should have saw some more time.
So that's interesting because I was going to ask you, how does Cayenne get more time? Because he's certainly producing in these first halves. We saw it against Clemson as well, and then didn't play a lot in the second half. So you think that the most likely option would be to put him at the 3 then? Is that what you're saying?
I think you could play Nate George, JJ, and him at the same time. But if JJ's not playing well, then you put him in for JJ. But it just seems like Red, he wants JJ in there. He believes in him, and rightfully so. He's a fifth-year senior or fourth-year senior, wherever he is, and he's proven that he can score the basketball. He just hasn't been playing, really well. So I think you can play all those 3 guys at the same time, and if not, then you have Nate Kings in the game.
Another guy that people have, has kind of lost his minutes is Sadiq White, and it's going to be tough for him, right, to get on the floor with the way Donnie's playing.
Well, it's going to be tough because he's not great offensively, and that's kind of where we're struggling right now is finding some offensive continuity. But again, going back to the first half, they did a great job of just having pace on the ball. And when I say that, they were moving the ball and it wasn't sticking, and then guys were moving off the ball and they were creating opportunities, whether it be playing off the closeout or getting 2 feet in the paint and kicking it out. You've seen it a few times. They had a kick out to Cayenne. He knocked down a 3, and I think another time they had a kick out to Nate Kings, who hit a 3. But it's going to be tough for him to get in the game because he's not great offensively right now. Defensively, athletic wise, He flies around. I mean, he's great. So you could really find spot minutes, but until he can, be a presence offensively as far as, shooting the basketball or whatever it is, he's not going to see a whole lot of time.
Eric, you said a moment ago that Georgia Tech went on its run in part because Syracuse got away from what it was doing offensively, and that's something that Paulie and I talked about earlier in the show, that it seemed like Syracuse started to bleed the shot clock a little bit earlier than normal, right? And they got out of their rhythm. And I brought up to Paulie the TCU-Kansas game last night. TCU was up 14 with like 4 minutes to go, and they started to do the same thing, and they got bad, it was bad possession after bad possession, and Kansas chipped away, ended up forcing overtime, and then Kansas wins it in overtime. You having played for as long as you did, what is the right way, what is the right balance, I guess, in terms of, like, I get the whole, you don't want to shoot in the first 5 seconds of the shot clock, but you also don't want to wait until there's 5 seconds left on the shot clock to start your move to the basket because you end up getting a bad shot. How do you properly go about trying to bleed the clock a little bit while not getting out of your rhythm offensively?
I think you don't want to get caught up into that. If you're up 20, and then let's try to get up 30. The worst thing you could do is when you get up 20 is be hesitant, because that's when you start to make mistakes, and that's what you saw Syracuse do in the second half when they turned the ball. I don't know how many turnovers they had in the second half, but
11.
They were playing hesitant. Exactly, 11. So when you're playing hesitant, you make more mistakes. When you're aggressive, it just happens that you make less mistakes. So I'd rather make mistakes being aggressive than being hesitant, and that's what it seemed like Syracuse was doing. They were playing hesitant. They were playing side to side. They weren't attacking, getting downhill. We talked about they went away from Donnie. So if you're up 20, the worst thing you can do is become complacent. You got to continue to play how you've been playing, and then when you do that, I think they would have had more opportunities to get to the foul line. You would have had more opportunities with easier looks, and they just went away from doing what they did in the first half offensively, and that's why you saw the turnovers and Georgia Tech able to come back and make a run.
They had 11 turnovers in the second half, 15 overall. But, is it worrisome to you that 13 of those turnovers are from George, Starling, and Kings?
Yeah, well, again, that's the thing. Like, they got into, like, iso ball or pounding the ball too much. Look, when you get over half court, if he's pressuring you, get rid of it, and then, you'll get it back in that half court. But, when you're starting to dribble like that, it's more likely that you're going to turn the ball over. He just has to be able to get it across half court. If they're pressuring you, obviously you want to, relieve it from a pick and roll or just get off the ball. You know what I mean? And they didn't do that. But, yes, it's when those turnovers are coming from your guards, those are your main ball handlers, So, right now I wouldn't be, panicking, but you definitely want to have a discussion like, hey, we got to do a better job taking care of the ball and getting to our sets and running our offense and executing.
Having watched Donnie these last two games against Clemson, especially that second half against Clemson and what he did last night, do you change your expectations at all, Eric, about what this team can do in the months of January and February as the tournament closes in? Do you think this team is now better equipped to go on a run given that he is back, or are you expecting this to be a team that's destined to for the bubble at best moving forward here?
It's always great when you get your best player back, right? Whenever you're missing your best player, you're obviously not going to be as good of a team. But I think Donnie's just been a really good job of just being aggressive. He in the second half, maybe he was around the perimeter a little bit too much, but I think he's been doing a good job being aggressive, and then that opens up his perimeter shot. I'd rather see him get those shots on the perimeter where he's like trailing in transition or pick and pop, not something where he's standing out on the perimeter in the half court and a catch and shoot. That's just not what type of player he is. He can knock it down, yes, but he's best when he's attacking the rim, getting to the free throw line, which he did a lot last night. But for me, I think their guard play has to be better. You know what I mean? We talked about taking care of the ball. Nate George has to do a better job of taking care of the ball. He did a good job of scoring the ball last night. I think he had 17 points. And then, JJ has to become more consistent. If JJ plays good, he's really the X factor. If he plays good, this team can go to a whole nother level. If you're not going to give Cayenne those minutes, where he can, really, come in and be super effective. And JJ has to play really, really well, and for this team to go to another level. I said it to, I forget who I was talking to. When your best player is William Kyle, when your best player is Donnie Freeman, you're going to win games, but you're not going to be as good as you can be. Your best players have to be your guards, most of the time. And I think they can be, like JJ and Nate George. If those guys can be consistent, I mean, because let's be real, it's a guard game. Those teams who, win national championships, go to the Final Four, they have really good guard play. I'm sure we can go back and use with the front court was really good, but your guards have to be consistent. And I think if they can be consistent going forward, this team takes another, step up, especially with Donnie Freeman playing how he's playing.
And that's why I asked you the question, because I feel like Donnie alone doesn't make this a tournament team. Obviously, he helps. Obviously, with him back, they're a lot better, but he can't do it by himself, right? And I'm with you. We've been talking about the guard play. The guards have to be better. They can't turn it over as much as they do. What are you expecting out of this next stretch? I mean, I don't know how much you've seen out of Pittsburgh, for instance. Pittsburgh obviously is the next opponent. What do you make of this next stretch where they've got Pitt and Florida State, BC, and any potential roadblocks in that stretch from where you sit?
They should win every game.
Yeah.
I mean, they should beat Pitt at Pitt. They should beat Florida State. Florida State hasn't been good, and they've lost to Dayton by 30. I know that was in the non-conference, but if Syracuse plays and competes at a high level, and they played how they did offensively in the first half last night, they should be able to take care of business against those teams, and then BC. And then you go, I think the next really test, and I'm not going to, all these games are tests, but I think, if I'm not mistaken, Virginia Tech.
Yeah.
I think they play. Do they go on the road against Virginia Tech?
It's a home game against Virginia Tech.
And then Miami.
Yeah.
Even better. In Miami, too. And Miami's not a bad team. These are all teams that are, they have gotten better from last year. So they're not going to be easy, but if they play how they're capable of playing, look, if I put these players down side by side, Syracuse has better players. So even in the loss to Clemson, Syracuse has better players than Clemson. They just didn't play better. So if they play how they're capable of playing, they should be able to take care of business, because they have to win these ones, because when you go to at Louisville, at Duke, I think, do they play North Carolina on the road too?
Yeah, they play both places, home and away for Carolina.
They got a home and away. They have to win one of those, because if you don't, then you're going to end up being 18-14 or 19-13. I think I looked at the schedule last night and I tried to do their overall record in my head, and then you got to go at NC State. NC State is good. They got a lot of talent on their team, Copeland and Williams and those other guys. So they have to take care of these games right here, the games that they should win, and then they got to find out a way to sneak one against Louisville or North Carolina or Duke or North Carolina State, whoever it is. If not, then they're going to be on the bubble, and it's going to be tough, because if you don't get one of those wins, then where are your quality wins at? Tennessee, back in non-conference, but you didn't really have any quality wins in ACC play if you can't sneak one of those road ones.
Eric, I want to ask you one more basketball question really quick. I feel like the net ranking is making fans look at the game differently than they had in the past. And, if I told you when you were a player, you're getting a 10-point road win against anybody in the Big East, whether it was top or bottom, you take that, right?
Yeah, that barely happens. Like back when we were playing, like if we won by one, we were ecstatic on the road. It's so hard to win on the road, regardless of who it is. Like, that was a good win last night. Regardless of how they played the last 8 minutes, to win on the road versus anybody in conference play, that's hard to do. And they won by 10 points. So you got to consider that a good win. Do you want to finish games like that? No, but it's hard to win on the road in any conference. But with that being said, they're still expected to win those games. So you got to take care of those games that you're expected to win. And like I said before, you got to try to sneak one of those other wins, because if against Louisville, Duke, whoever it is. If not, then it's just going to be hard, because I'm not a fan of the metric things, or you got to win by 30 or whatever it is. It's just, how about we just go out and win games? Because when you do that, everything else usually takes care of itself.
All right, Eric, you're guest bartending in Manlius at the Taco Bell Cantina tonight. What do you guys got going on out there?
I'm not really sure. I'm going to show up and support Gomez. I know he's debuting his book out there, so Gomez has always been awesome to me. I want to go out there and support him and hopefully meet some fans and have a good time.
All right, yeah, and I believe all the tips go to charity, right, tonight for you guys? I believe.
Yeah, you know what? I probably should have looked into it a little bit more.
We should have also. I'll find out during the break.
You know what? If that's the case, then that's awesome.
It definitely is.
Happy to go out there. Well, I'm more than happy to go out there and support.
See, Devo's just a yes guy. Says, you know what? You need some help? Sign me up. I'm happy to help. Devo's always willing to lend a hand. Eric, thanks for coming on. We appreciate you talking Cuse basketball with us. Enjoy the rest of your day, and we'll talk again soon.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.